everyone. First of all, a very warm good evening and welcome to Developer Diaries, Enterprise Open Source Adoption. Today, we have brought to you two speakers who are going to give talks on open source. And without much delay, I'll bring the first speaker to the stage. Hey, Nishant.
Hi Karthik.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Uh,
Hope you're well.
yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, so yes, yeah, I'm fine. So, Nishant is co-founder and CTO at Devtron Labs. And Nishant, could you please tell us little about yourself and the talk that you are going to give today?
Yeah, sure. Hello everybody. So this talk is on basically a decode open source contributions with Deftron. This talk is going to little bit about what Deftron is, why we are building Deftron in open source, why open source matters to us, why you should be contributing to open source, and broad architecture of Deftron. And I am Nishant Kumar, CTO co-founder of Deftron Labs and one of the main contributor of Deftron. So uh, prior to building Deftron, I was working with multiple startup and larger scale of organizations and was solving different developer productivity related problems. And the Deftron is kind of utilization of all the learning that I had in my initial journey career. So can I have my screen share?
Yeah, sure.
So starting with what Devtron is. So basically, it's a developer productivity tool. DevOps has to integrate with hundreds of different tools in order to run their production application reliably. And this tool have no standardization at all. The ecosystem is quite fragmented, due to which they they have to write different script, keep integrating with different tool, and it's continuous process. Uh, so Devtron brings you a uniform integrated platform for you where you have all the integrations available. You can use it in a via standardized, you can say, interface. At core of it is a central dashboard, which is quite customizable based on your requirement. And there is a lots of integration which you can use based on your use cases. Your use cases might be ranging from CI/CD to security, cost optimization, debugging, observability, anything. You might be using some open source tool for solving these problems or some enterprise tools for solving this problem. Devtron has integrations for all of them available in one place through single intuitive interface, which means you have to do deployment on Kubernetes. You can do it through Devtron. You have to deploy a database on Kubernetes. You can do it through Devtron. You have to deploy Kafka on Kubernetes or MongoDB on Kubernetes. You can do it through Devtron. You have to give access to the cluster or application to different developers. You can do it through Devtron. So in short, Devtron gonna be kind of interface between human and Kubernetes. This is the small team behind Devtron, a very young and energetic team behind it. And who is Devtron using Devtron? So Devtron is used by organizations of all size. They are like it organization of two developer to organization of 1,000 developer. Organizations of two developer where we have They have to quickly scale their business, test their hypothesis, and solve business use cases. They are relying on Devtron for their software automation, integration, and reliability, software delivery, entire supply chain, and to the large enterprise or organizations where you have lots of developer working together on single code base. Uh, they all are like doing commits daily, deploying it daily. You have millions of users on your website daily. So at that scale, you want standardization and scalability. Deftron caters all those purposes. Uh, People from all across globe, be it Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, China, USA, we have champions in all geographical regions. They are using to deploy all kind of applications like microservice, big data, AI/ML model, legacy monolith, be it Java application, Mongo application, Python application, any application, or your infrastructure softwares like you can say MongoDB, Kafka. They are using it to deploy and manage entire software stack through Devtron. Uh, Devtron is completely open source. Now, question comes for a young startup, why everything is in open source? So, as I said, I was developer so during my journey, I found many organizations are very fast growing, and some of are and a lot more are lacking in terms of growth and pace. When I dive deep into them, I found uh, the at the core of it is tooling. All of them have right set of developer, but some of them are equipped with well tools, and some of them are not. These organizations who are successful in their business, they have a kind of in-house team to build tooling for their developer, and using them, their developer were being more productive. Some of them were generous enough to open source their tools to the community. But the problem is that these tools can't be used as such smoothly because they are dependent on organizations internal complexity. They were not developed as a process of it will be used across globe, across organization. And that's why we find very hard in adapting and using them. But I believe any organization who could have access to this kind of software, their developer can be far more productive than they are today. And that's why we built Devtron and open sourced it so that any organization of any size, any paying capability, anywhere on geographical map can use it without any boundary. We have all 100% of our source code is open source. This is the only reason. It's we feel this is the primary fundamental thing that tooling is a fundamental thing that they need to have access. So it should be available for free of cost to anybody in this world. Second thing is uh, as software is evolving day by day, we realized that software platform is more about inclusion and diversity of opinion. One size doesn't fit all. If we develop it with community, then only we can evolve it to solve problem of planetary scale. And the most important part is we have been benefited heavily by open source softwares. And it's our time to contribute, our turn to contribute back to the society. Open sourcing it is one such small contribution or payback to the society or the community, what we say. And similarly, why anybody out there must contribute to open source projects? There are several reasons behind it. The one most important is that everybody is depending a lot on this open source product. And if you are contributing to them, you are basically improving the product on which you are relying. In short, you are making your life easier and better. And so you should be contributing to it. Next one is the in this open source problem. This open source software are solving different problems. So you get an opportunity to solve variety of problem and challenge yourself how you can solve some of the truly generic use cases that this software are facing. Third is you simply meet multiple people with similar interest between whom you might share knowledge and build community and network. Fourth one is mentors and you might find mentors and who can help you in grow personally and as well as professionally. And similarly, you can uh, teach others also, which will give you a lot of satisfaction. And the most important thing, you will be contributing to the larger mission on which they are, which is improving life quality on this planet. This is the most important thing. Now, next come what it means to contribute. Uh, you can contribute to open source project only if you know how to code. Some people think in this way, but this is wrong, entirely wrong. Your contribution to open source product can be of any form, be it coding, be it UI UX, be it documentation, be it testing, be it community engagement, or be it helping others in using a project. So basically, it's kind of if you are contributing to any or organization, open source product are just like any organization. They also need support in all aspect, including coding. So if you are supporting any of these aspects, you are capable of supporting in any of these aspects. You should be supporting them. Next come points to you should consider before choosing any open source project where you should be you are going to contribute. So most important most important thing is you should truly believe in this in the project. You should be aligned with their objective, their mission, their vision, what they are doing, how they are gonna evolve the platform in the future or tool in the future. That's the most important thing. Or you can say thought process similarity when you are like-minded product who thinks in the same line as you. This is the most important thing. Second thing is licensing. uh, how friendly their license is. Is it community friendly? Is it developer friendly? Third one is ongoing development around the project, whether the project is actively being developed Community is vibrant, a lot of development is going on. That's the important thing. Next is response time of maintainer. If their maintainers are actively still actively involved in project or not, they are responding you on time or not. This means whether they are valuing community's opinion and problem the community that they are facing or not, and the uh, what type of community it is, whether it's a welcoming community or it is like a denying community. So it's important that you choose the community where you enjoy. And when you want to contribute to any open source, Devtron is one of the best product to contribute right now. Why? Because Deftron has truly mission-oriented team with a sharp focus on improving developer productivity by democratizing the dev tooling and their accessibility. They're razor sharp. Second thing is that Deftron is completely true open source. 100% code is uh, open source under Apache 2 license. Deftron doesn't have any single line of code which is behind firewall. So it gives you kind of confidence, or like we are not some pseudo open source company where open source being open source is just a marketing tactic. Yeah, and in the back we are serving some enterprise customer through some different code base. This is not the case with Devtron. 100% of code is open source. Devtron product is rapidly growing with more than 50 active contributions per week, and it has a dedicated support team to support the community. Uh, you can join Devtron's Discord channel, and you can feel what kind of vibrancy we have on our Devtron Discord channel. And the most important thing, opportunity to learn cutting edge technologies. If you are a developer, uh, for, back end, front end, everything is modern technology is being used, lightweight and cloud native technology is being used. So overall, it's the one of the best project to contribute if you are planning to contribute any open source product. So now, what's the architecture of Devtron? So Devtron, if I uh, tell you about Devtron's architecture, so it has two main components. First one is basic minimal dashboard, and second one is a library of integrations through which you can achieve any sort of business objective that you want to do. So here first, let's discuss this uh, dashboards architecture. So it has three main components. One is UI, second is core orchestration layer, and third is kubelink service. So starting from kubelink, what it does, it's capable of connecting multiple Kubernetes cluster at one go. Uh, uh, when you connect kubelink to different Kubernetes cluster, it scans your cluster and lists you all the application that is running on your cluster uh, in your intuitive UI on dashboard. From there, you can browse all the information about your application and take actions, be it any deployment or be it any debugging related action. You can take it from there. So kubelink is kind of interface between our orchestration layer and Kubernetes cluster. Then we have Deftron core or orchestration layer. It has very fine-grained access control mechanism embedded where you can manage access in your organization for giving access to developer across team, across project. You can manage all sort of custom requirement for your product. Uh, Access management is done via Cashwin. So we have we are we have integrated Cashwin and heavily relies on Cashwin rule. And for authentication, we have Dex integrated. With this minimal UI, you can start using Devtron once you feel ki, okay, this solves your problem. Devtron has you can integrate different integrations with the dashboard. Some of the integration currently we have one integration available, which is CICD integration, and it's one click from the dashboard. When you do CICD integration, what will happen? Technically, this that simple system will turn into a giant system where we have all sort of capabilities available. Uh, Everything can be smoothly transitioned from the dashboard itself. Once you have installed the CI/CD integration, let me walk you through the flow that will happen. So now we have multiple services running on our cluster, right? Uh, you can create any application uh, and integrate it through Devtron and deploy it on your cluster. Starting from so starting from CI, so you have created a application. Your application is lying on Git, let's say. We have a service called Git sensor, which keeps watching your Git repository. As soon as any changes is pushed on your Git repository, be it commit, be it tag, be it merge, Git sensor will notice that, and you can configure based on what you want to trigger CI pipeline or what action you can take based on these signals. One of action you can take is to trigger CI pipeline. So the signal received at Git sensor will be notified to our Deftron course orchestration layer. Orchestration layer, based on pre-configured logic, decide what kind of job to trigger. Suppose you have decided okay, once you have commit in main branch or any feature branch ABC, you need to trigger CI, automatically trigger CI. So Devtron will trigger CI for you. How Devtron CI works? So it has for CI, it integrates with Argo workflow. Argo workflow is kind of system uh, which is capable of running any sort of production work, any sort of workload or job or scheduling can be done. Uh, Devtron relies on its core foundation, and we have a microservice called CI runner, which leverages Argo's Argo workflow, and all of your jobs can be run in CI runner. In CI runner, you can define multiple pre-CI and post-CI steps. These steps can be unit testing, integration testing, end-to-end testing, or any security scanning. Anything can be done in CI pipeline. Uh, it can integrate with different security layer and different plugins to achieve or any sort of complex pipeline for you. Once CI is done, you can do automatic deployment via Devtron. Uh, if any the deployment is you can deploy via Devtron through two mechanisms. One is via GitOps backed by Argo CD. Second is via Helm itself. Based on your pre-configuration, you can achieve it. And then we have a notification system. We have a continuous watching system. You can integrate Devtron. You can deploy different publicly available Helm charts via Devtron also. So we have for that Devtron has a chart sync service. It syncs all the charts available on public repository and renders to you on a via nice catalog. You can select any of the Helm chart. It can be of MongoDB. It can be of Kafka or RabbitMQ, anything, or Nginx Ingress. You can select those charts and deploy it via Devtron. And all this, so in the all this is done transparently, smoothly for you, without involving much. You not need to involve any sort of integration complexity. It automatically does GitOps for you. It does uh, backup, setups, monitoring, alerting, and debugging environment for you. Everything is done transparently for you. For communication, some communication are done via NATs, and some of them are done via REST. Data is stored on Kubernetes itself and in Postgres. So this is the broad architecture of Devtron. Now, where to contribute in Devtron? You can contribute in Devtron based on your area of interest that you like to write. You can help us in improving project documentation, write tutorial, write a blog post, write write about different use cases of Devtron. If you like to design, you can help us in defining a style guide of Devtron so that we have a unified, consistent UI or restructure layouts to improve project usability. Then you can review our product's design and experience to improve ease of use in our product. If you like planning events, you can contribute by organizing workshops or meetup about Devtron. We will be more than happy to support you in this in any form. You can con- uh, contribute by helping community members to find right conferences and submit talks, proposal, any sort of basically event planning and community engagement activity. If you like organizing, you can help Defton in organizing our GitHub repo better. You can link duplicate issues, suggest new issues label, keep things organized. Uh, you can ask clarifying question on recent open issues to move the discussion forward. Go through open issues and suggest closing old ones. Help in product planning and roadmap. So you can help us a lot in here. Next, if you like helping people, you can contribute by answering to Stack Overflow, Discord, Reddit, or any place where people express their doubt about or any problem they are facing with Devtron. Answer to questions for people on open issues. There are lots of open issues currently pending, and you can answer some of them. You can offer to mentor other contributions and or contributors, and you can review PRs if you like to write code. That tons of opportunity for you. One of the like a very hot opportunity that we have is uh, currently we are evolving Devtron as a tool integration platform where we have our code infrastructure ready, code piece ready. We have integrations for CI/CD, GitOps, uh, clear image scanning, among others. So you can help us in curating more and more integrations on the platform so that for every versatile use case, Devtron is ready. But we are this feature is more evolving day by day. You can get involved in initial architecture discussion also and be part of the journey. Uh, yeah. Next one is Deftron's. Our CI has a very pluggable architecture where you can plug any sort of tools uh, in pre-CI and post-CI stages, be it any security scanning tool, be it code convention enforcement tool, be it any reporting tool. There is lots of distance of opportunity to create plugin for CI/CD, for pre-CI, pre-CD. You can do that. You can help us in curating this library also. You can help us uh, in implementing different kind of workload. So currently we have very limited kind of workload supported. As of now, we support Argo rollout, we support cron job, we support workflow, we support Knative, but support for like deployment, replica set, daemon set, stateful set are still open. Uh, if you know about Kubernetes deployment, how they work, you can help us uh, help Devtron or contribute to Devtron through help jars. Currently, we have integrated with Clear Security Scanner tool. You can build a integration for other tools out there, be it Trivi, be it DTrack or anything. Then next is API testing automation. So test automation is very important part of any product. You can help us in improving the automation coverage. Next is opportunities like the upgrading libraries. Like any other product, Devtron is dependent heavily on many other open source libraries. Uh, and like Devtron, these libraries are also evolving day by day. It's a very tough job to keep them updated. You can contribute to Devtron by upgrading library one by one, or any sort of any contribution in this can take its maturity to next level. And next, you can go through GitHub issues, browse it. Uh, if you are able to connect with any of them, just ask question about it and fix it. So these are the some few of the contributions area where you can contribute to Devtron. And yeah, thanks all of you for listening.
Thank you so
Any
much,
question?
Nishant. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Nishant, for your wonderful
thank you, Roger.
session. So, yeah, we'll be waiting for a few minutes until participants ask their question. So, guys, you can post your questions in the live chat so that Nishant can answer it for you. So, Nishant, Jay Prakash is asking, does this supports OCIOP? Nishant, are you able to hear me?
Yeah. So for image building, we haven't built support for OCI. Okay. But for deployment, you can definitely deploy these containers. If you'd like to build support for OCI, okay, that will be great. We can help you with the pointers where you can contribute in this.
Okay. Looks like there is one more question.
Yeah. So for you can deploy uh, any kind of application via Devtron, be it Python, be it Node.js, be it Golang, be it Java, any language, uh, front end, back end, it can be deployed via Devtron. Personally, Devtron is built on with Golang for the backend part, and front end part, it's JavaScript, TypeScript, React.js.
Okay. So yes. Uh, Also, guys, you can reach out to Nishant on his LinkedIn and Twitter if you have any more queries, and he should be able to answer to all of you. And so this was the first session of Devtron, and likewise we'll have a few more sessions in the upcoming days, and the details will be provided to you soon. So with this, thank you so much, Nishant, for joining us today and giving us a wonderful session. And we hope to have you again for a next meetup soon.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Rohit. Thanks,
Uh,
people. This,
Nishant, before you
yeah.
drop, so there is one last question that if you would like to answer.
See, what we can say is that when you so if we break the word Devtron, it has two parts, Dev and Tron. Dev is for development, and Trons are basically particle accelerators, which accelerates any particle. So this, so Devtron is kind of accelerating your development cycle, and this is what we are doing. It accelerates developers' productivity and their speed. That's why we chose the name Deftron.
Okay, that's wonderful, Nishant. So there is one more question from Suman.
Yeah. Okay. So Deftron is kind of solving unique problem. I don't think there is out there who is solving developer productivity's problem in this way. So I personally I haven't encountered any competitor as such.
Okay. All right. I believe that Nishant has answered to all of the participants' questions. And also, like, if any more questions come up, Nishant, you can go offline and answer to the questions on the YouTube chat section as well.
Sure, sure.
Sure.
Thanks, Rohit.
So, thank you so much, Nishant. Have a nice day ahead. All right, guys. So that was Nishant from Devtron team, and it was a very wonderful session. So continuing with today's meetup, we have our next speaker, Navendu. He is a developer advocate at API7.ai. So without wasting any more time, we'll bring him on stage and let's uh, talk to him. Hey Navendu,
Hi Rohit. Hi Rohit. Yeah,
hi. How are
thanks
you
for
doing?
having me. I'm doing quite good, and yeah, it was a great session from Nishant, and I really like the Devtron project. I'll be checking it out after this stream, I guess.
Great, that's wonderful. So Navendu, before we get started with your session, if you would like to give a brief introduction about yourself, like what you're doing currently and what is the talk going to be about today?
Sure. I'm a developer advocate for API 7.ai. I work on mostly cloud native stuff. And today we will be talking about contributing to open source 101. So Nishant in the last session talked about different areas you can contribute to in Devtron, and he talked about all the different areas that they are expecting more contributors. So basically, what I'll try to do in this talk is to help you make your first open source contribution. If you are completely new to open source, or if you are trying to get involved in open source project, I will try to help you out by giving some pointers from my own experience as an open source contributor. So without further ado, I will get started.
Sure, sure, Navendu.
All right. So, welcome to Contributing to Open Source 101. I'd like to start this session by showing some numbers. So, 80% of the maintainers need help in finding and recruiting new contributors, and 92% of employers say finding talent with open source skill is difficult. So, there's a large market, and 52% of developers haven't contributed to open source yet but want to. That is an overwhelmingly large number. And 33% don't know where to start. So if you are in this 33%, this talk is for you. And 31% think they aren't skilled enough. So I'll try to break this stereotype today. So a little bit about me. So I am a full-time open sourcer. So I work full-time on open source projects. Currently, I work on the Apache API 6 project. I have been working on this project for the past 3 months. Prior to that, I maintained two projects, Meshery and Service Mesh Performance, at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And I'm also a mentor at Google Summer of Code and the Linux Foundation mentorship program, where I try to help new contributors make a lot of significant contributions to these open source projects. So I think this is the most important question that we need to ask ourselves before we start to like invest time in open source. So why should you contribute to open source? So this is an obvious answer, that you will improve your coding skills. So the more you code, the the better the better you get at coding. So it will definitely improve your coding skills, and it will also help you gain real world experience. So when you are coding, or when you are starting out as a developer, you won't have much exposure to how software is built in the real world, but contributing to open source projects can give you that exposure. So even if you are a student, even if you don't have a computer science degree, or even if you are just learning computer science through online courses, what you can do is you can apply those skills in an open source project, and you can get real world experience. And you can also gain recognition. So there are a lot of popular open source developers. So, and like in countries like China and India, like it is as close to a celebrity status you can get by working in tech. So there are a lot of famous open source developers, and even if you are not that famous, you can build a name in the community. So people will recognize you, and you will get more opportunities. And with this recognitions comes your network. So open source is like a playground. So people from all over the world will come there, and people, you'll be working with a lot of people uh, in your industry, outside of your industry. So you will be able to build your network, and this network can help you find new opportunities. So yeah, so I guess that's it is pretty much clear. Like when you are starting out, having a lot of opportunities in your hand is is a must. So yeah. So now that we have the why part clear, let's look into first contribution. So if you are completely new, you haven't done any open source contributions, what should you do? So the first thing I would say to everyone is to start making your personal projects open source. So if you are starting out, you are likely a new developer, or you are a student, or you are learning to program. So what you can do is you can make your personal projects open source. So if you say you built a UI for some app, or you are learning a front-end framework like React, and you built a UI, what you can do is you can open source it. Similarly, if you are working on a project and you wrote some functions, you can modify it to be a library or a framework, and you can open source it. Or even if you took some notes while you are learning new things, yeah, or you have collected resources while you are learning, you can also open source it, and other people will find it really helpful. And another thing is that you should learn your tools. So you are as good as the tools you are using. So you should definitely learn Git, the version control system, and a cloud hosted and Git environment like GitHub or GitLab. Most of the open source projects are hosted either in GitHub or GitLab. So if you can find your way around these platforms, then it is really good. And the most important thing you need to keep in mind is that you should learn in public. So always document what you are learning. Always make it public so that other people can learn from it as well. All right. I see a couple of questions. I'll be sure to answer them at the end. So yeah. Now that you have some open source exposure, like you have open sourced your projects, you know the tools and everything. Let's talk about contributing to open source. Let's talk about the next step. So the first thing you have to do is to obviously find projects. So you need to find which projects you want to contribute to, and you need to have a certain set of skills that the project expects, or ways in which you can contribute to the project. So you need to build your skills. And an open source project is as strong as its community. So you should look into join the community surrounding the project, and how you can get involved with the community and the project. You need to follow the contributing guidelines, and you need to find good first issues or long hanging fruits and fix them. Now let's look at all of these in detail, and I'll try to walk you through how you can do this in the best possible way. So finding projects is really important. It is really important because you will be spending a lot of your free times, and you'll be doing a lot of unpaid work in the traditional sense on these open source projects. So you need to find projects that you are really interested in. So you are investing a lot of time and effort in working on the project, and you need to have a certain motivation to work on the project. So find projects that you are really interested in. And one way to do, but like there are a lot of projects, how would you know if a project interests you? So that's when you look for projects that you are already familiar with. So if you are a developer, you will surely have at least used some open source projects in your development career. So there will be a lot of projects. So if you are, let's say if it's a front end framework, there are React is an open source project, Angular is an open source project, Vue.js is like a highly community driven project. So there are a lot of projects that you might already be familiar of. So what you can do is look for these projects. So it can be tools or libraries that you have used. So look for these projects, and try to find what interests you and where you can contribute to. And while searching for projects, keep this in mind that good communities and people to help you are great for first contribution. So if a project has a good community around it, and if there are people who are mentoring new contributors, who are helping out new contributors make their contributions, then those projects are really good for making first contributions. Because sometimes projects, this may not be intentional, but some projects may not be that welcoming to newcomers because they are not in that, but in that point yet. So always try to find good projects with good communities around it and good people around it. And once you have found a project, there will definitely be a skill gap. I felt it when I first started contributing. So you have to build your skills. You have to build your skills to make that first contribution. So building skills. The first question you ask yourself is, what are you good at? So if you are really into mobile development, then, and if you are really skilled in mobile development, then that is something you might want to do. Or if you are particularly interested in let's say cloud native technologies, if you are particularly interested in Docker, Kubernetes, you write Golang code or you write Rust code, then cloud native projects might be something that interests you. So depending on what you are good at, or what skills you have, you can you can uh, you can decide which skills you want to work on. So if you are already good at something, then you need to get better at it. And another question to ask is, what are your interests? So even if you are a mobile developer, but you want to get into something different, uh, you need to work towards building that particular skill. So based on your interest, you can work on that particular skill. And other than the interest, you need to decide what you would like to work on. So once you find a project, then you would be able to you will be able to understand what skill sets the project has, and you know what you like to work on. So work on that particular skills and level up in that particular skill. And finally, you should ask what skills are in demand. uh, this might be a slippery slope, but there are some tools and some languages, or yes, so basically some skill sets are in more demand. A lot of open source projects have a lot of new open source projects may use those people with those skills to build the project. So keep a lookout for that, and see where the industry is moving, and learn those skills as well. So you don't want to uh, invest time in something that is completely outdated. Maybe like only a couple of projects might be using that, so that leaves you with a very small percentage of projects to contribute to. So always check on the trends of the industry. But if you are like me, I don't know I don't know the answer to all these questions, so I end up exploring. So I tried a lot of things until I found what interests me. So yeah, you can try that as well. And always learn things by building projects. So if you build a project from scratch, you know the entire life cycle. You would know by the end whether if you want to work on similar projects in the future. So learn by building projects. And if you find things boring, then skip. If you are in that particular, if you can afford to skip, you can skip the technology, and you can learn something new. So if you found mobile development very boring, then there is no point in sticking with that and trying to make open source contributions with that skill. So you can always jump to the next skill set. Always try things and find what interests you. So after all these, you need to figure out what you want to work on. That is the end goal. You can explore as much you want, and by the end figure out what you want to work on. And once you have a project, and once you have that's have a are skilled up, you can join the project's community. So a lot of projects have communities on Slack. There might be a mailing list, there might be a Discord server, or any sort of thing. So these communities build the project, and like we say in the Apache Software Foundation, it is community over code. So community is more important than the actual code itself when it comes to open source software. Communities sustain open source projects, so having a healthy community is important for open source projects. And if your project has such a healthy community, then you are in for a treat, I guess. So you can join the community and interact with the community, and be active and engage in the community. So as long as you are interacting with other developers in the community, you are making yourself heard. Uh, you can give your ideas, you can join in on community meetings, you can do a lot of things, and uh, you can be a part of the project by engaging in the community. So you did all that, then what is the next step? How do I make a pull request, or how do I actually contribute to a project? So most projects will have a contributing guideline. So if the project has a contributing guideline, you will be able to find it, and you must make sure to follow that. So if you are not following the guide set in the contributing guidelines, then you are likely to be dismissed, or your pull request or your contribution to the project may not get accepted. So make sure that you follow their code of conduct, and yeah, the basic guidelines set by them. And most of the open source projects have issues labeled good first issues. So look for them, and that is the best way to make your first contribution. And these good first issues are usually saved for these new contributors. So they are reserved for first time contributors. They are usually quite easy to fix, and they will help you to understand the flow of the project, or flow on how you can contribute to the project. So yeah, so definitely look for the good first issues. Now I want to talk about something different. So whatever I talked about before, there might be a few people who might be thinking that, I'm not a good enough programmer to make open source contributions. So open source contributions are really difficult. But in fact, contributing code to open source seems impossible at first, because it is a large code base and there is no one to guide you. But it gets easier. So but there are also another type of open source contributions. You don't have to contribute code. You can make non-code contributions to open source as well. So non-code contributions to open source are often more valuable than contributing code. I say this because there will be a lot of code contributors, and the project might lack input, or it might lack manpower in other areas. So open non-code contributions can get to be more valuable than contributing code, just because there aren't enough people doing that. And and a project definitely needs non-code contribution to sustain itself. It is not just about the code, it is about the community, and it is about the users as well. So what are the different areas you can make non-code contributions? If you are good at writing, you can use that skill to write documentation. You can write content for social media pages. You can create content for I don't know, you can do the job of a copywriter and help help write blog articles and do a lot of stuff. So there is definitely room for you in an open source project if you are a good writer. And if you have the technical skills as well, you can that will be a nice intersection. So if you are technically skilled enough to understand the project and write about it, then you will be a very valuable asset in an open source in an open source project. And if you are a designer, if you are creative, and if you like to design stuff, this is for you. So you can design content for social media pages. You can help create a style guide for the UI of the project, and okay, you can do a lot of stuff. You can give your creative inputs to all sort of designing decisions made in the project. And this is definitely an underrated area uh, in of open source contribution, that is by being a tester or a user. So if the open source project is pretty early in its development, then it will be, they would love to get users feedback. So you can be a very active user, and you can be a tester itself. You can be an active user, and you can use the project, and you can find where the you can identify bugs and report them. You can talk to the development team about the user experience and how it can be improved. So, and a lot of things. So this is quite helpful because most of the developers working on open source projects, they might be too close to the project to see these issues. So this is definitely a valuable contribution if you are reporting bugs and if you are reporting issues back to the open source project. And you can also sign up to be part of alpha and beta testing programs, so that is definitely helpful when making new releases. And if you are a skilled programmer, if you are quite experienced in a particular tech stack, or if you are quite experienced in the tech stack the project is working on, then you can be a mentor. You can help new contributors uh, uh, by walking them through their contribution, or helping them write code, or mentoring them in any sort of way. And finally, you can be an organizer or a community manager. So as I said before, it is community over code. So community needs sustaining, and contributors need sustaining. So as a community manager or as an organizer, you will be responsible for running meetings. You will be responsible for running events, or you could even be the as a sort of an organizer of the project's repositories, communication channel, and all sort of things. So this is also an area you can invest in, and you can contribute to. And once you start making these contributions, once you made your first contribution, how do you go from there? Because in most of the cases, I find that people really want to continue working on open source, but they don't go above their initial contribution. They might be still stuck at making good first issues. They might still be stuck at yeah, doing the easy stuff. So how do you level up? And as someone asked in the chat, how do you level up and make your way to being a full-time open sourcer, or uh, uh, get to a point where you are doing a lot of open source stuff? So one thing you want to understand is that it will take time, and with time, quality and quantity of your contributions will be better. So you will be making a lot more contributions. You will have a lot of context about the project. You will have a lot of knowledge about the project to make much more contributions and much better contributions. So it is about quality and quantity. So you will be much more proficient open source contributor with time. So it is all about sticking with the project for a long time. And once you are in a project for a long time, you can find more ways to contribute. So if you are in a project for a long time, you will find that there might be some areas which lack contribution, which you can identify, and you can help work in that particular area. So if the UX is not considered for a, let's say, a command line application, then what you can do is you can make contribution to that particular area that people are not looking into it. And similarly, if the project does not have uh, a lot of community organization, if they are not giving a lot of talks, if they are not writing many blog posts, uh, you can definitely understand that if you are in a project for a long time, and you will be able to make contributions to that. And be a project manager. So I say project manager because sometimes open source projects lack leaders or lack management. It might be free for all, pick up any issue you want and fix them, but on the long run, to for an open source project to be sustainable, it needs to have someone to manage. So you can be a release manager. You can identify which issues needs to be worked on. You can identify what all areas are being worked upon. You can manage the contributors, you can manage the contributions, all sort of things. And basically this means that you have to take up the role of an open source maintainer, even if you are not a maintainer. So that is how I select maintainers. So if someone is already doing the job of a maintainer, I would ask them and give them permission to be an actual maintainer. So if you find someone who is already doing the job, then you can be quite sure that they will be good at the job. So uh, do things that is beyond your scope, and try to help out the project in every way you can. And finally, pay it forward. You will be only successful if the people coming after you are also successful. That is the beauty of open source. So as I have mentioned before, it is about community, and community needs to be sustained. So if you are helping out newcomers, then the community will always be healthy, and you will have a lot of contributors who will uh, come and help your project. So always pay it forward. Now, how do you get to a career in open source? So I have classified it into three ways. By career, I mean a way in which you can make money sustainably, and you are doing something for money, and you are able to live off of it comfortably. So yeah, so the first way is to build, scale, and monetize your own open source project. So instead of contributing to open source projects, you can make your own open source project, and you can scale it up, and you can find ways to monetize that open source projects. There are a lot of successful open source business model. uh, uh, One of which is the open core model, where you have an open source offering and a proprietary offering on top of that open source offering. So the open source offering is completely free, and if people want to use let's say features like cloud support, or yeah, if they want to use advanced features, they have to uh, pay for the proprietary software built on top of the open source project. And another successful business model was Red Hat's business model. It has been going for a couple of decades right now. So basically, they built free and open source projects, and they charge for providing support assistance to the open source projects. So yeah, there are a lot of successful open source business models that you can look into, and that you and by building your own open source project and monetizing it, you can leverage these business models to make a sustainable career in open source. And another way is to work for a company which build projects that follows this open source business model. So it is not your project, you are working for a company. You are being paid by a company to work on an open source project. So the company will likely have a different a cloud offering on top of the open source project, or any sort of proprietary offering on top of that open source project, and you will be working for that company, but you will be only working on the open source side of things. And finally, uh, you can get sponsored to work on open source. So uh, this has also been a very sustainable way in the recent future. So with with platforms like Patreon and GitHub sponsors, individual contributors are being sponsored by individuals and organizations to work on open source. So this is also becoming a very sustainable way to build a career in open source. And contributing to open source does come with its own sets of challenges. And I think it is important to be aware of those challenges and understand that everyone working, I guess every software engineer faces these challenges. And particularly when you are contributing to open source, these can get amplified. So there is definitely a fear of judgment, because when you contribute to open source project, you are essentially asking the entire world to come and see your work. So if you are making a pull request, or especially when you are starting out, you might be worried what people will think of your code, or what they will think about your writing skills, or or in general what about your contribution. So there is definitely a fear of judgment, and it is uh, it is only natural. Everyone contributing to open source faces this. So understanding the fact that it is natural and everyone will face this problem helped me to overcome this fear. And it can also get hard to choose a project, so you are investing a lot of your time and effort in to contribute to an open source project. So you have to choose the right project, and you have to find the right community where you fit in well. So this might get hard, but it will take time, and you will have to put in a lot of effort yourself uh, to choose a project. I have seen a lot of people ask me to help me choose them a project, but I don't think that will be sustainable. I can't just tell someone that you must contribute to this project. That won't be sustainable for them or the project in the long run. So you definitely have to find projects that you are particularly interested in, and you should definitely choose a project. And it might also be difficult to align this with work and personal goals. So for some of us, open source can just be their work. It might not be something they want to do in their personal time. So and some might be contributing to open source because of their professional goals. So they might be working on projects that are related to their work, and they are contributing to it just so that they can use it on their project. So aligning this with aligning your contributions with the work and personal goals can also get difficult. And there is the age old imposter syndrome. So tackling imposter syndrome is difficult, and I think if you are facing, my personal opinion is like, if you are facing imposter syndrome, then it means that there is room for improvement. So if you are feeling like an imposter, or if you are feeling that you are not good as your peers, then I think it means that you are in the right place and there is a lot of room for improvement. So thinking about imposter syndrome that way kind of helped me. And that brings an end to my session. And if you have questions, now is the time to ask. And if you don't want to ask now, you can always talk to me on Twitter. So i'll be I'll be able to help you out.
Hey Navendu.
Hi, Karthik.
Hi. First of all, it was a very wonderful session, and we have some questions in the chat. I'll display it on the screen.
So Akhilesh asked which companies use open source projects. I don't know if there is a company that doesn't use open source project right now, because like at least in some point of the supply chain, they will be using open source projects. Yeah.
There's one more question.
So Suman asked, how can we earn full-time open source, earn being a full-time open source contributor? So like I mentioned, there are different ways you can like make open source a career. Uh, I guess I will talk about my experience. So for me particularly, I get paid to work on open source projects by companies. So I'm essentially an employee of a company, and they pay me to work on their open source projects. So that is how that is my situation, and like there are other situations as well. You can get sponsored, you can get you can monetize your own project, and yeah.
Hope that answers your question, Suman. Thank you, Navendu, for such a wonderful session. If you have any more questions for him, you can find out how to reach out to him. His LinkedIn, Twitter, and his website are mentioned in the description of this YouTube video. Feel free to reach out to him anytime. And with this, we have come to an end with the meetup, but we have a quiz, uh, and you can find the link to the quiz in the description of this YouTube video, and also in the comment section. I'll paste it again. Do register. Yeah, it is here. So do register. So we'll wait a couple of minutes for people to register. If you are new to QuizUp, you will have to sign up. And the top 5 winners of this quiz will get vouchers worth 200 INR. And like this, we'll be also having a meetup in next month. So stay tuned, guys. For further updates of such meetups, you can follow our LinkedIn and Twitter profiles. All right, so we are getting registrations and we'll be starting the quiz soon. All right, we'll be starting the quiz. Okay, before we go ahead with the quiz, I'll tell you some do's and don'ts of the quiz. So, for a smooth experience, we recommend you to use either Google Chrome or Safari. In case you get dropped out from the quiz, please try to join back as soon as possible. And if this happens, if you get dropped out and you join, you will be allowed to participate, but from the next question onwards. And we request you to not be on VPN. It may affect your bandwidth. You may face some lags. Also, try avoiding refreshing your screen while you're playing the quiz, unless and until it is very, very important. Okay, guys, so we'll be starting with the quiz. Hope you have registered, and the first question will be on your screen. The time is up. And the correct answer was Unix. Moving on to the second question. The time is up. And the correct answer was open source initiative. Moving on to third question. The time is up. And the correct answer was proprietary. Moving on to the fourth question. The time is up. And the correct answer was availability of technical support. Moving on to the fifth question. The time is up. The correct answer was proprietary software. Moving on to the sixth question. The time is up. And the correct answer was community-based development. Let's go to the seventh question. The time is up. And the correct answer to this question was Mozilla Firefox. Moving on to the eighth question now. The time is up. And the correct answer was make. Going ahead to the next question. The time is up. And the correct answer was forking is when open source software is developed into something different. On the leaderboard, at the first position, we have Bhagya Rana. Second position, we have Vijay Kumar. Third position, we have Suman. And at fourth, we have Ashish Kumar. Let's go to the 10th question. The time is up. And you can see the correct answer on your screen. Moving on to the 11th question now. All right, so the time is up. And the correct answer was Argo. And if you want to know more about Devtron, You can find the links mentioned in the description of this YouTube video. You can go check out. Moving on to the last question. The time is up, and the correct answer was tool integration platform for Kubernetes. Again, if you want to learn more about Devtron, you can check out the links in the description. With this, we have come to an end with this quiz. But before announcing the prizes and the final winners, let me tell you even more opportunities of winning and earning and learning. So we have Cloud Native and DevOps quizzing challenge, in which you can take participate. It is a weekly quiz. You can win prizes. You can win Amazon vouchers and Devtron branded cool swags. And secondly, we have Devtron blogathon contest, where you can write blogs, submit your blogs, and you can refer to the rules, guidelines, and win amazing prizes. So both the links to both you can find in the comment section. Blogathon and the tournament of Cloud Native and DevOps quizzing challenge. Participate and win more prizes. On this quiz leaderboard, on the first position we have Suman, 9 points. On second position we have Ashish Kumar with 9 points. Third position we have Tony with 9 points. At fourth position we have Bhagya Rana at 9 points. And at fifth position we have Kedarnath with 8 points. So the top 5 who have won this quiz will be getting vouchers worth 200 INR, and the winners will be reached out to through email. So thank you guys for joining. Stay tuned and stay updated for further meetups and quizzes. You can follow us on social media, Confab Technologies, and stay updated. Thank you guys. Have a great day ahead.